right, today's movie review is The Mummy's Ghost from 1944 from director Reginald LeBorg. And here are some behind-the-scenes details about the movie from IMDb. Although there are rumors that Lon Chaney Jr. scenes in the Mummy series frequently were used by doubles, director Reginald LeBorg stated that Chaney did his own scenes in this film. Alright, so those are some interesting behind-the-scenes details. I wonder where that rumor or that thought comes from that Lon Chaney Jr. didn't do the mummy costume. And if you think about it, he did every character. There's a film where he's Dracula, well, son of Dracula. There's a film where he's Frankenstein's monster. There's the Wolfman, he's the Wolfman. And then there's these movies where he's the mummy character. And I'm pretty sure he was the Phantom in a movie too. So he's pretty much been every character. I'll get into my thoughts on the plot now. The plot, I give it a 1 out of 5. I'm sorry, guys. These plots to these mummy movies are melting together for me. I can't distinguish them anymore. They're exactly the same. There's a priest. He happens to have like an amulet or something to bring Carice back to life. There happens to be a descendant of, I think Akhman-Ra is his name. That might be Night at the Museum, but the descendant of the pharaoh that he was guarding and Carice happens to find. It's the same thing over and over. They just change the setting in each film. I honestly think the best ones are when they're in Egypt with the pyramids and whatnot. This movie, they're just in a bayou, and it looks like it's just on the studio lot, honestly. So I was pretty disappointed with the plot, and that's why I gave it a 1 out of 5. Alright, let's talk about the acting. The acting, I also gave a 1 out of 5. It is dreadful. No one is interesting or relatable or someone I want to follow or to succeed or anything like that. And John Carradine, who's another actor who's in a lot of these movies as different characters, I love his voice, and I think he's done great films. He's great in Stagecoach. He's great in Secret of Nim. He's the owl in that movie. He's just not good in this movie. I don't think he was that interesting as a priest. He's very flat and boring, and again, I wouldn't be able to distinguish his performance of that from that of his Dracula that he did in House of Dracula. That's next week's review, but I don't think he was a very good actor, at least in these movies. They seem pretty dreadful. Lon Chaney Jr. is fine, but Carice, whatever his name, he's hardly in the film. It's not noticeable at all. He's in it for like 2 seconds, it really feels like. So, no, I did not like the acting. It's pretty bad. And I didn't like any of the background characters either. Oh my gosh. It's terrible. Yeah, anyway. Directing. Okay, so this is Reginald is his name? Reginald LeBorg. I almost said LaForge. The other Star Trek character. Reginald LeBorg did a terrible job here. I give it a 1 out of 5. I honestly couldn't tell you the difference between his directing style and that of the other directors that were at Universal doing like the Dracula movies, the Frankenstein movies in the 40s. They all feel the same to me. It's really difficult to tell them apart. You definitely can tell these were B movies that they released with the A features. They're just not that good. And again, to me, The Mummy works better. He's in Egypt. I don't know why we're in America, I think, in this movie. I don't know. Terrible directing. Alright, for cinematography and special effects, I gave it a 3 out of 5. Look, the costume of Carice is still really cool. And the slow walk that Lon Chaney does for him is still really good. I'm not going to discredit that. I'm going to give credit where it's due. It still is pretty menacing and scary. It's just hardly in the film. And I think the scenes where Carice is with John Carradine's character are actually interesting. Like this one right here. When they're actually talking about the mummy stuff, when they're actually with like Egyptian stuff, it's interesting. But this is like the one scene that's like that. But that's why I gave it 3 out of 5. I still really like the costume. Alright, so now we're talking about the music here. The music, I give it a 2 out of 5. It's so bland as per usual, but what was weird to me was, especially at the end, you'll listen to it, you're like, this sounds like a happy, almost like a happy Christmas theme song, like, or just happy movie in general. It's like, this is a horror film, you know? Like, people are dying, and this is not fit the tone at all of the story. So that's why I gave it a 2. It's fine, you know, it's serviceable, but it does not fit the tone at all. It just feels like they went into the archive of Universal. It's like, pull up this one. This should work. Slap it on the end, you know? It's just not good. Especially when I was just talking about Max Steiner. Max Steiner's score for Gone with the Wind, for example. When you hear a couple notes from it, you know exactly where it's from. Even if you don't know the names of the songs, you've heard it before. This movie does not have that at all. It's very generic, very basic, and does not fit the tone. It's 2 out of 5. Alright, so tallying that all up, that brings my Letterboxd score to a 1.6 out of 5, which I'm just barely rounding to a 2 out of 5. It was very close to being 1.5. And so that brings my Criticalist score to a 32% out of 100. Oof, I think that's bogus. So would I recommend this movie? No. And I'm going to be frank. I haven't liked any of these Mummy movies. Not even the 1932 one. I didn't like that one. The only Mummy movie that I really, really like is actually the Brendan Fraser one from 1999, funny enough. So, yeah, no, I'm sorry. I can't recommend this at all. I can't recommend any of these Mummy movies. The only ones that I've liked are the sequels that were in the 30s for Dracula and Frankenstein. All the others, so far, not so good. But what I'm going to do with these movies, though, is once my wife and I have kids, these will be the scary movies, quote unquote, I'm going to have them watch during Halloween and whatnot, just as a family. I think they're safe, and I think kids will, be scared, but not like horrified, if that makes sense. There's a couple movies for that too, but I think for that aspect, I think it'll be fine, for the future. But as of right now, these are terrible movies. All right, well, those are my thoughts on The Mummy's Ghost from 1944 from director Reginald LeBorg.